everyone, I'm Stephanie, Long Island's eating disorder specialist, and I'm super excited to be here with CHRISTINA Frangione. She is a nutritionist out here on Long Island who works with eating disorders, and we're going to talk about what led her into the field. We're going to talk a little bit about what's normal eating and intuitive eating, and we're also going to talk about and confront some of the resistance that may come along with finding a nutritionist when you're struggling with an eating disorder. So I'm really excited, but I just wanted to let you know and remind you that I post on this channel twice a week all about eating disorders, body image issues, and general mental health. So if you're interested in any of that, definitely consider subscribing by clicking the subscribe button down below. And while you're at it, scroll down a little bit more to subscribe to my email list. You'll be the first to know of any other collaborations in the future, as well as I create a lot of resources to go along with many of my videos, and you will get those in the emails at the beginning of the week that tell you about or help you work through the videos that I post later on in the week. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it along to CHRISTINA to introduce herself.
Thanks, Stephanie. Excited to be here. So as Stephanie said, I am a dietitian out in Long Island. I have a private practice here where I work with people all along the spectrum of disordered eating. So without totally taking it in another direction before you even ask me a question, as you may know, disordered eating exists on the spectrum. Eating disorders are on the spectrum. So I work with someone who is just a little bit weird about food or has some issues with food, someone who's been chronically dieting, and then I work with people who are diagnosed with eating disorders. So I see a whole range of things in my practice.
I love that distinction. I think that it's so important to recognize that eating disorders are not just the only thing that has an unhealthy relationship with food. And I would argue that with our culture, the Western culture, that we have so many people who actually struggle with disordered eating. So with that said, would you agree with that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think I've been calling it disordered eating because that's what I've seen. Mm-hmm. But the more I really kind of thought about it and worked with people, I felt it was more appropriate to call it dysregulated eating. So, it's not that, there's necessarily something wrong with someone, because when you think of a disorder, you're like, oh, there's something, totally out of whack with me. I need to go get it, work done. I need to go to a doctor. Not that you shouldn't get it treated, but, I'm out of touch with the way that I should, or not should, the way that I want to be nourishing myself. And I'm out of touch with my hunger cues, my fullness cues. And, so it just dysregulated. And it's not, the way that I want it to be.
Mm-hmm. I love that, because that can really be for anyone. And especially in our culture, most people are kind of along those lines, especially with all the diet talk. I hear that constantly in and out of my practice. So obviously I have a focus on food while I'm treating my clients who actually have eating disorders. But even in my everyday life, I hear so many people who have I would say, dysregulated eating, and what they're eating is out of line with how it makes them feel, and probably the way that would make them the happiest, I would assert. So I also wanted to ask you, CHRISTINA, you had said that you had struggled yourself. So I really would like to know a little bit more about that journey, if you would feel comfortable with sharing that.
Mm-hmm. Sure. So I'll explain it as it relates to kind of how I got into this work. Mm-hmm. So I had an eating disorder from the time I was in about middle school, and then up until high school, and then got worse in college. And I was really fortunate enough my family was able to afford treatment for me. So, I had therapists, I was able to go to residential treatment, outpatient treatment. So I got some good treatment there. However, I also got really bad treatment. I had providers who said they specialize in eating disorders.
My gosh, yes, there's so many of them.
But then, the things that they said, oh dear, it was
damaging.
It was rough.
Yeah,
it was rough. So, I mean, thankfully I was able to get through that, and I had some really good support beyond that, and was able to say, hey, the things you're saying to me, those don't really resonate with me. That doesn't sound appropriate. That doesn't sound right. But I did put up with some things for a little bit too long. But that just kind of helped me realize, you know, I was, you know, in college, like I mentioned, and I was at a time where I was choosing different career paths, and they were all totally not nutrition related or mental health related. And then I realized, you know, what do I want to do with my life? I could go be, you know, a scientist and work with whatever. That actually wasn't that was not a career path. I actually was thinking of being a speech pathologist, and then I changed to environmental studies, which are, you know, environmental is certainly still a huge part of my life. But, you know, I changed, and I was like, oh, maybe I could be a therapist. But you know what? I really like the science of nutrition, and I really found that once I started nourishing my brain properly, I was amazed at the things that I could focus on and I could put my attention on. And just seeing that firsthand, seeing that the quality of the food I was eating and the quantity of the food I was eating just played such a big difference. And then also when I started learning about nutrition in disease states and how that could really, really benefit people, then I was sold on that idea. Then I actually did it, and I went to my undergraduate, and I did not feel like I fit in there. I felt like we were learning about something that just felt really disjointed to me. We were learning about, this is the one way to eat, and if we don't eat like this, we're gonna gain weight, and weight gain is bad, and you know, this is our job as dietitians. We're gonna help combat this obesity crisis. And you know, this is the main thing that we're working on. And you know, if someone isn't being, you know, good, or you know, they're not doing what we prescribe them, there's something wrong with them. It's not that there's something wrong with the system. So I sat through a couple of years of that, and just, you know, sitting quietly and kind of listening, you know, and being in it, and being like, okay, I guess this is what I'm getting myself into. But it's okay, because I'm gonna do sustainability or something that's a little bit different than, you know, what I've been hearing. And I did my internship, same idea. No one was really challenging anything. I started to ask questions and, you know, kind of see, was there a different way? And I was met with resistance from the people around me. The director of the internship was like, oh, well, if you're not gonna help people lose weight, what are you gonna do?
Ooh, shot through the heart. Oh my gosh, in our field.
At that time, I didn't realize what my options were. So I was like, you know what? Maybe I should just quit this program. You know, maybe this is not the right field for me. But I stuck with it because I stick with things.
Yeah, that's a problem with a lot of people, so I get it.
And so I stuck with it. I graduated, and then I had to get a job.
Inevitably, right?
Yeah, and so that's a whole story in and of itself. But eventually I got a job working with eating disorders. I quickly lost that job due to no fault of my own. It was their own issue. And in that really brief time, I realized, hey, like I want to work with this population. Like I have a lot to offer. And then I started reading about health at every size, and my world blew up.
It's crazy.
I was like, wow, I can be a dietitian and not be someone who harms people. I can actually help people. And once I realized that, you know, I haven't looked back since then. And I worked in a bunch of, you know, non-health at every size intuitive eating jobs, which were hard.
Yeah.
It's definitely hard being the only person who believes the things you believe in those places. But then I now work for myself, and I get to make the rules, and it's wonderful.
God, it's so wonderful. So that is, first off, an amazing story. And I really do appreciate you sharing that with us, because that is something, I mean, I just love, you hit so many amazing points. So I'm like trying to like gather my thoughts, because there's so much that I want to address with that. But I just think it's amazing that you were able to recognize that the way that they were teaching simply just didn't fit. And obviously you had your own issues that brought you to that point. And, you know, that just goes to say that a lot of times people think that, like, why did I have to have my eating disorder and such? But ultimately, a lot of people can end up helping people so greatly. And it sounds like you took that experience and now you are really, really helping people. Brings me into a point that I wanted to ask you about and talk about, is that there's so many people who I know with, you know, let me totally backtrack, because I wanted to address the part that you had said that going to school. and you said that there was just so much talk about, the science and nutrition and, losing weight, and that was basically the focus of it. And there's not really a lot of education on eating disorders. And I'm a therapist, and I went through to 2 very great schools I would speak very highly of, and really great programs. But the thing is I can tell you, maybe with all my education combined, we talked about eating disorders, like I couldn't even say like for 2 hours. All my experience really came from experience or my own education and self-taught. I focused my thesis on body dysmorphia. It was always something that I really was passionate about and taught myself. So what happens is that nobody, or not many people, really know in the profession of nutritionist, I would assume, as well as therapist, that it does require a specialty. Like you actually need to have experience and knowledge about eating disorders to be able to properly treat someone who has eating disorders or who has an eating disorder, disordered eating or whatnot. So that was a really great thing that you touched upon. And something that leads me to is I always try to tell through all my platforms. I mean, you guys would know that I always talk about how important it is to find a therapist who specializes in the treatment of eating disorders. And so many people will say, yeah, I work with it. I swear that there is a Psychology Today profile box that says check all with everything that you can possibly treat. I swear, like it has to. I should probably look into it next time I log in, right? But everyone says that they treat eating disorders, and I'm like, it's just not possible, because I've had so many horror stories for people who have come to me after seeing prior therapists, which goes along to your point about how they say things that are very, very detrimental, and my clients then are in a worse off place than when they started therapy. I've had clients tell me that their therapist stepped into a nutritionist role, and a bad nutritionist, saying that like, oh, just stay away from carbs. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, I can't even get into that right now. But I wanted to ask you then, what do you think is the importance level in finding a nutritionist that specializes in the treatment of eating disorders, or do you feel like it's not necessary? I doubt that one.
Yeah, that sounds
just wanted to throw that out.
Yeah, so absolutely. It's definitely, like you said, anyone can say that they specialize in anything. Anyone can say, oh, I'm really interested in eating disorders. I want to say I specialize it because I want those clients. And I'm just going to get experience on the job. They're going to come in and I'm just going to learn it. Like, okay. That's
not easy, really.
That's, on the one hand, okay, if you want experience with a certain clientele and you tell people up front, hey, you know what, I'm not really that experienced in this, but I'm still learning. I'm doing supervision, I'm doing trainings, and I'm really active in the community. But you're actually the first client I've seen with a full-blown eating disorder. Are you okay with that? Because I'm willing to learn with you. And again, this is not someone who, I'm willing to learn with you, but I'm not doing anything on the outside. This is someone who they're bringing it to supervision. They're, talking in groups about it. And, if that's the case, okay, fine. But that's not the case. People are way
to put it out there. It's really not.
People are not doing that. They're saying, okay, I specialize in, like you said, checking off all the boxes on Psychology Today. Yep, seen it. Yeah.
Been there, done that.
Yeah. Well,
seen the sort.
Whoops, seen it. So yeah, I mean, I could, definitely talk about how you can suss out, who actually, if it says they specialize in eating disorder, how do you know that they specialize in eating disorders? Because I've done a bunch of searching for therapists on Psychology Today, trying to find people for my clients, and I'm not referring to someone who says they specialize in eating disorders, 20 other things, and also that they specialize in obesity. No, thank you. Like I'm not referring to you. So it is absolutely very important that you, again, not that it has to be your entire specialty, if the person is okay with it, as long as you are willing and able and have the support to see that client, and that you're not someone who has never seen it before in their life. If you don't know what an eating disorder is, don't say you specialize in it. But if you have an interest in it, you have an understanding of it, and you are not going into it trying to harm people, if you can say to yourself, I am willing to do the research. So the current research best supports practices of health at every size. So if you believe that people in a higher weight body should lose weight in order to just be better people, then no, you should get your butt out of the eating disorder field.
Yeah. Well said. Well said.
Yeah. So yeah, important to specialize, but also if you're someone out there who is trying to find someone, it's not even that important that they say they specialize in eating disorders, as it is to say, do you specialize in the treatment of humans in all different shapes and sizes, bodies? And then the fact that, you know, if I do want to change my body, will you say, okay, I know that that's what you want to do, but like, let's talk about that, and not say, oh, okay, let's push you on a diet, even though I don't know anything about diets, but I do intermittent fasting, so you should do it too. So yes and no.
Yeah.
Specialization. My therapist actually, who really helped me, did not specialize in eating disorders. So that's why I stand by the fact that, and you know, she was very highly trained in her work, but it's not a specialization. And the way she explained it to me was that, you know, I don't specialize in addictions or alcoholism or, you know, whatever the specific thing is, because that's, you know, not treating a person as a person, it's treating them as their disease or, you know, their affliction. And I just treat humans. I treat the human condition. So I loved when she said that, and that really resonated with me, which is why if someone says they don't specialize in something, that doesn't matter to me. It matters more, you know, following up with questions. Are they actually going to be the right fit?
Right. And I love that, because it's very, very difficult to find someone who just at least is open to being aware about the things, as well as it's really hard to find someone who is willing to learn. And that's really frustrating, because when people say flat out that they know everything that they're talking about and that you need to listen to them and you're viewing them as an expert, I love what you said about how just being transparent that you're the first person that I've worked with. So that's really interesting. And also I've seen a lot of people who are nutritionists that say that they work with eating disorders, and they hand me their business cards that have a scale on it with a person standing on it and like all excited that they lost weight. I mean, it's very apparent.
Did you tell me that? I just heard that story recently.
Really? No, I just heard that story recently.
Oh, okay.
And then like I was handed it, and I was just like, oh my gosh, like this is real. Like I thought the person was like joking, because I got it from a treatment center. Like, she's like, I don't know what on earth this person was talking about, and she's like, I can't give this card out. And I'm like, yeah, like I can't either, so whatever. But it's very, very difficult. I've noticed, especially when I was trying to find people who are referral possibilities for my clients who I would like to find a nutritionist for, I've had a very difficult time finding people who work with eating disorders or who have an idea about how to work with eating disorders. It was everything I saw was like dietitian or diet oriented, weight watching type of mentality. So I'm wondering, do you know, like, would you say that the best way to do it, and to like you said, suss it out, would be to actually talk to the person and kind of like do an interview for them?
Yeah, so I've actually recently written a little guide, because people were, you know, I had this one girl who I am acquaintances with, so we were just chatting, and she was like, oh, would you recommend I go see this dietitian? She sent me her name. I looked up her website. She specialized in eating disorders, or not that she specialized, but she treats eating disorders. She had an eating disorder when she was younger. She overcame it, and now, yay for her. That's what she does now. But then on the other hand, her and her associate, their specialties were listed as weight management, and they helped people, you know, achieve a healthy weight and, you know, all those sorts of things. And so I emailed her back. I'm like, no, and these are all the reasons why you shouldn't. And then I'm like, oh, let me like write this down for other people.
I think it's great.
So, you know, there are a lot of keywords to look for, but then a lot of people co-opt those keywords. So if you see the word, you know, non-diet nutrition, wonderful. Wow, okay, amazing. Go see them. But then non-diet nutrition for weight loss. Way to ruin that.
Yeah, like yeah, so there's a lot of, I think, like fishy things that you can look out for, and like the diet language, diet talk.
Yeah, so anything that says that, you know, So one example of it is when someone says, you know, I believe that my philosophy is that all foods fit. But I believe that only for some people, because other people need to be on a really restricted diet, because those people need to lose weight.
Right.
And
okay.
that is what people are saying.
Yeah.
You know, essentially they're coming out and putting that right on their webpage, and people are eating it up.
Oh,
to
boy.
totally like
no pun intended, right? Well, that's really, really interesting, and it is very disheartening to me that we live in a world that it's so infiltrated with people who have disordered eating and eating disorders, and there's so little help out there. I remember when I decided that this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to work with eating disorders. I am still shocked to this day. We live in New York, on Long Island, a very, very populated place, and there is so little help out there, and I'm like, God, oh my gosh, if someone was in like North Dakota, like they're not getting help because like I said, we live in a very populated place, and to see that there's so little help out here, it's just crazy to me. Hello, thank you so much for tuning into this interview. I just wanted to break in here to let you know that I realized that this is kind of a long interview, which is amazing because there's so much awesome information in there, and I thought it was really fun too. So I hope that you really enjoy it. However, I'm going to break it up into multiple videos just so that it's a little bit more digestible, no pun intended, but I think it'll be a little bit more or less of information overload doing it this way. So I do apologize that I didn't let you know earlier on when I did originally film it, but I think that it's okay because I'm telling you that now. So make sure you tune into the next video.